In a scorching afternoon on the Third Mainland Bridge in Lagos, the sun blazed overhead, turning the bridge into sweltering trap. Traffic had come to a standstill, and drivers sat in their vehicles, fanning themselves with newspapers or angrily honking their horns. The air was thick with frustration and exhaust fumes, creating a stifling atmosphere that seemed to trap everyone in a shared misery. Suddenly, the scene changed. A small battered car screeched to a halt just ahead of us. Everyone nearby turned to look, curiosity breaking through the monotony of the standstill. The car door opened. Out stepped a man dressed in a rumpled shirt and tie. His face was pale, his expression a mixture of despair and determination that made my stomach twist. Before anyone could react, he began walking briskly towards the edge of the bridge. For a moment, time seemed to slow down. I watched, frozen, as he climbed onto the rail, gripping it with trembling hands. It hit me like a bolt of lightning. This man was about to jump. Panic surged through me. "Hey! Stop!" I shouted, my voice breaking with urgency. But the chaos of the blaring horns drowned me out. My heart pounded as I flung open the car door and sprinted towards him, hoping against all hope that I wasn't too late. Others nearby had also noticed. A hawker selling snacks dropped his tray and rushed forward. Just as he was about to jump, a miracle happened. The hawker, who had been closer than the rest of us, lunged forward and grabbed his arm. Gasps ripped through the crowd as the man dangled over the water, flailing and screaming, "Leave me alone! Let me die!" he shouted, his voice raw with pain. The hawker's grip faltered, but held on, his face contoured with effort. "Help!" he cried out. Within seconds, several others joined him. I grabbed the man's other arm, and strength of adrenaline surging through me as I pulled out with my might. Slowly, painstakingly, we heaved him back onto the bridge. Once on solid ground, he collapsed in a heap, but his struggles weren't over. He fought us, trying to wriggle free. "Let me go," he yelled, his voice filled with despair. "I have nothing left to live for." We formed a circle around him, preventing him from getting back to the edge. I looked into his eyes and saw a depth of anguish that was almost unbearable. His pain was so raw, so visible, that it brought tears to my own eyes. Something inside me refused to walk away. I had to understand why. We quickly called out for the police, and in a short while, the police arrived, their flashing lights cutting through the chaos. Two officers approached cautiously, speaking to the man in calm, measured tones. "You are safe now," one of them said. "Let us get you somewhere safe." The man didn't resist as they helped him to his feet. He looked utterly defeated. His shoulders slumped and his head bowed. I couldn't bring myself to leave, so I followed the police to the station along with few other witnesses. Something about his story felt unfinished, and I needed to hear it. At the station, the man sat in silence for a long time, staring at the floor. The officers gently urged him to talk, but he remained mute. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he lifted his head. "My name is Emeka," he said, his voice barely audible. Tears streamed down his face as he began to share his story, each word heavy with pain. "I returned from the UK last week," he said, his voice trembling. "Before I left, life was already hard. My parents died in a car accident, leaving my younger brother and me with nothing." He paused, taking a shaky breath. "Our landlord threw us out when we couldn't pay the rent. We had nowhere to go. A few weeks we slept under the bridge, hungry and cold. Eventually, we made our way to our grandmother's village. She took us in, even though she barely had anything herself." His voice broke as he described the small mud house they called home. Life in the village wasn't easy. My brother and I took on menial jobs, working on farms and processing cassava for major wages. The villagers mocked us, he said, his voice tingled with bitterness. They called us orphans and beggars. But my grandmother's unwavering support kept us going. With her help, we managed to acquire a small piece of land. We poured our energy into farming, working from dawn to dusk. Slowly, our effort began to bear fruit. We started selling our products in Lagos, making enough money to dream of a better future. The struggle in Nigeria was unbearable. Opportunities were scarce. One day, I met a man who claimed he could help me travel to the UK. He said there were endless opportunities there, jobs that paid in pounds, and a chance to turn my life around. "All you need to do is to gather some money," he told me. I told my brother of it. He was a bit skeptical, but I had made up my mind. I didn't have much, but I sold everything I owned. With the savings in the hand, the papers were processed, and before I knew it, I was on a plane to the UK. On arriving, I was overwhelmed by the newness of everything. The buildings were tall, the streets were clean, and the air felt different. I had been instructed to meet a Nigerian man named Chuki, who had been connected to me by the man in Nigeria. Chuki welcomed me warmly. He gave me food, a place to stay, and even a little pocket money. For the first time in a long while, I felt hope, a sense that my life was about to change for the better. After settling for about a week, I approached Chuki to ask about the job he had promised. I was eager to start earning and begin the better life I had envisioned. "The job had been waiting for you even before you left Nigeria," he said with a smile. My heart leaped with joy. "You'll be distributing drugs to my clients," he added. My head spun. "Drugs? But that's illegal," I stammered. Chuki's demeanor changed instantly. "It's either you do it or you get out of my house," he said angrily. Fear gripped me. I couldn't stay, but leaving felt just as dangerous. My parents had raised us to avoid crime, but now I was cornered. Pretending to agree, I said, "I will do it." Yet in my mind, I knew I had to escape. That night, I began watching Chuki's movement and planning my way out. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with fear and plans of escape. I observed where Chuki kept the key and waited until the house was silent. As the clock struck midnight, I tiptoed to the door. My heart pounded as I turned the key and slipped outside. The cool air hit me, and I ran as fast as my legs could carry me. I had no idea where I was going, only that I needed to get far away. Suddenly, I saw flashing lights in the distance. The police patrol. Panic surged through me. If they stopped me, I wouldn't even know what to say. I darted into the alley, hiding behind a double stair until the coast was clear. By dawn, I was exhausted, cold, and lost. As the sun rose, I wandered aimlessly, my stomach growling and my body aching. I walked aimlessly, trying to ask for help, but no one gave me attention. As the sun was going down, just as I was about to give up, a voice called out, "You look lost." I turned to see the young black man about my age. He introduced himself as Tunde. "What's your story?" he asked kindly. Without hesitation, I told him everything about Chuki, my escape, and my hopeless situation. Tunde listened patiently and then said, "You can stay with me for now. I work at a mortuary and I can talk to my boss about getting you a job." It wasn't what I had envisioned for myself, but I had no other options. Tunde kept his promise and spoke to his boss. The next day, I found myself at the mortuary, surrounded by the smell of the chemicals and the stillness of death. My job was simple but gruesome, cleaning the floors and cleaning dead bodies for burial. The job was physically and emotionally draining. At night, I often lay awake, thinking of home and wondering if I had made a terrible mistake coming to the UK. Yet, I reminded myself that this was just the beginning. If I worked hard enough, I could turn things around. As weeks turned into months, I started taking extra jobs. I cleaned offices, packed trash, and did anything that paid. Slowly, I began saving money. One evening, I called my younger brother, who would be back in Nigeria. I told him about my struggles and plan. "I would send you money and you will invest in real estate," I told him. "By the time my stay will expire in 7 years, we would have enough money to live comfortably." The money I sent to Obi started yielding results. My brother's update seemed promising. "Everything is going well," he would say, sending pictures of buildings he claimed were ours. Hearing about our growing investments gave me hope and the strength to keep pushing through the hardship in the UK. My days were filled with labor. I would work long hours at the mortuary, then rush to my side jobs. The exhaustion was overwhelming, but I knew that there was no room for rest. Every pound I earned brought us closer to our goal, I thought. After 7 years, my visa expired. I returned to Nigeria. I was excited to see the result of our hard work, but my excitement turned to heartbreak when I confronted my brother. He had wasted all the money. Every kobo I sent him was gone. He had spent it on parties, drinks, and women. The pictures he had sent me were all lies. I couldn't believe it. Everything I worked for was gone. I felt like my world had collapsed. "Why? Why?" I asked him. "How could you do this to me?" But he had no answer. My heart was broken and I didn't know how to move forward. The betrayal was too much for me to bear. I wandered the streets aimlessly, haunted by the memories of my struggles. The dreams I had worked so hard to achieve were gone, replaced by an overwhelming sense of loss. I gave up everything, and for what? To come back to nothing. I watched Emeka as he finished the story. His pain was raw and real, and it was impossible not to feel it. The policewoman beside him tried to comfort him, but it was clear he was struggling to hold on. "You've been through so much," I said softly. I tried holding back my tears, but I couldn't. "What a wicked world," I sighed.